It is another beautiful Saturday afternoon here on the Y254, and it is that time when we go ahead and discuss everything that has been happening in the world of sport. Now, this week, finally, it was an end of an era as the Noc elections were done, and we have a new president in office, five-time marathon winner Paul Tergat. Today, on our highlight segment, we have put it off because we have got guests in studio, and we are going to kick it off exclusively here as we talk to the newly elected treasurer of the Noc executive this time round.
Of course, Touchline is the show program that comes to you every Saturday from 12 to 2 with myself, Maxwell Wasika, alongside Robert Osoro, just focusing on the highlights of the sport. A lot is happening, so great show expected. Keeps tuned, and remember you can be part of the program. Just join our social media handles at Wasike Maxwell, at Osoroberts, at Touchline Y254, both Facebook and Twitter handles. And of course we have Daniel Wahome, solid sports journalist with KBC, alongside a man who's been elected yesterday as the Noc Treasurer, National Olympic Committee of Kenya. Remember Paul Tergat, five-time world cross-country champion, being elected, going unopposed after Kipchoge Keino, the outgoing president, decided not to defend his seat. Gentlemen, glad to join us on this particular platform. Starting with you, Karis, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
How does it feel?
Well, it's nice. It's hard work, but winning is one thing, delivering is another thing. So the feeling of wanting to start work almost immediately is on.
Wahome, you were at the venue at a Nairobi hotel yesterday, keenly following the proceedings as Noc elections got underway, of course, in the late afternoon. How was the situation like?
Okay, first of all, karaoke. Did you tell Alina Shiveka happy birthday?
No, we just hugged to congratulate each other.
You should have told her.
I didn't know her birthday, so I wouldn't have I don't know her birthday.
It was yesterday.
She didn't tell me, and we were sitting next to one another. So happy birthday, Lina.
You pulled the birthday present off her by winning the treasure, of course.
I didn't.
But no hard feelings anyway. Yes. But what I'll say, it was quite intriguing. But it did show something that people do not seem to see around the Olympic movement, and I mean across the world. Everyone expected probably athletics is the biggest one, but it just happened to be something different. Where does the current IOC president come from? He comes from fencing. Where does the previous Jack Rogge? Is he from, what we'd call a big Olympic sport? He's not. Which are the two biggest Olympic sports? It's swimming and athletics.
That's right.
And if you are just to look at it overall, it simply reflected something that's global, but also how people, run sports politics around. And it was a big lesson for these big federations. I mean, you don't just stand there because I am this big, but you've got to look for a minimum of 11, in yesterday's case, 11 votes. And before it changed, you were probably looking at 13.
That's
because
right.
Before three federations
would have been 23, 24, including IOC representative Tergat himself. And you remember rowing was still fighting there. So together would have been about 23, 24.
Yeah. So you needed 13 votes.
Yeah.
But so if you don't know how to cut across the federations and get 13, then there's no way you are going through.
That's perfect. Now the election is done. The senior himself, Kipchoge Keino, we have bid him goodbye. He has gone home. Now, Eliud, you are in the office today. Paul Tergat is in the office today. What will be your new agenda for Noc? Because now everybody will be, we are going to Commonwealth, we've got Olympics coming up, but now we've got a new office. What will be your new agenda now as we go forward for sports in this country?
Yeah, the agenda for NOC is long. It's not only the coming Commonwealth, but other programs that are in the line.
Yes.
And we, as you heard, we got in yesterday, and we have all different ideas on how we can enhance the sports ministry. Now, in particularly for myself, I have passionate on the way the finances and the governance and ensuring Noc is self-sustaining, and we can be able to bring back our sponsors on board, because the name had been soiled just is it last year with Rio.
Yes.
And so that is the first thing to do, because without money really, you can have the best programs in the world. We've got to bring confidence of Kenyans back. We've got to bring the confidence of the government back, and most importantly, the athletes themselves.
Yes.
And the sponsors. Once that in my docket is done, and we have a good financial base. The other programs will surround nothing but the athletes. Remember, this is a 4-year period,
Yes.
and there are many, many other small programs in between, including locally. I remember we were trying to discuss with Tergat yesterday on how we can include the 47 governors
Yes.
on board,
47 governors, yes.
because they have ministers for sports within the county,
Yes.
so that we can entrench them to come on board and develop athletes from the youth level. That is the basic thing. But that's probably 1-2 years. The immediate thing that is concerning us now is our Commonwealth Games is around the corner. Accreditation has started. And so we need to move with a little bit of speed to ensure that we deliver that with confidence to the Kenyans.
Yeah. Let's listen into some of the comments that were made yesterday as we had the new president of Noc, Paul Tergat, speaking at the event yesterday after winning the election.
Stand guided by values of integrity, responsibility, governance, accountability, and transparency. A new start that will embrace the dynamic innovation in sports, such as sports science, technologies, and advancement in a rapidly changing world that we are living in. A new start that will seek to put above else the interests of our sportsmen and women and our beautiful nation that we all cherish.
You are now coming in. Let us sit down and see what we can do. And plan for what can generate money. That building can be able to generate money. If we sit down and plan for you to be able to have an office, which other federation can be able also to utilize. We need an Olympic museum in that building. We need an Olympic library in that building, and other activities which can be able to take care of the Olympic movement and also our federation.
Rugby was never part of the Olympic movement. Now Sevens Rugby is part of the Olympic movement, and we want to see funding coming into the union to support the development programs that we have. We want to see more support coming in directly from not just Noc, but particularly from IOC in making sure that our programs are put on track, because IOC obviously has a lot of funding, more than any other organization. So we're looking forward to that.
That was Paul Tergat, Andrew Mudibo, and Kipchoge Keino talking at the event yesterday as Noc won that election. Well, I've got to pull you into this conversation. When you look at Paul Tergat and the new office, what do you see them doing? Give them a yardstick.
I mean, it's very simple. The first thing that has got to happen as far as the Olympics, as for most laymen, is about the sport. And I remember last year before the Olympics, the IOC president, Dr. Thomas Bach, gave a press conference, and one of the things he said was that going into the Rio Olympics, the presumption of innocence for Kenyan athletes does not exist. I have that video, it's not something I'm creating. Basically what they were saying, and it has got to do with clean sport, anti-doping. So that's the biggest challenge and the credibility for Kenyan athletes. And I have not seen a retraction of that statement anywhere. I have not read it anywhere. I've not seen a video. I've not had a clip. So it's something that's got to be done. For example, if you look at what is the role of a National Olympic Committee, number one, anti-doping education and fighting anti-doping around the Olympic sport, it's their mandate. So the first thing is the credibility of Kenyan sportsmen has got to be done. That's one of the things that comes into play. Second thing, there's two takeouts from the Rio Olympics that they've got to build on. Number one, there is the IOC award that Dr. Kipchoge Keino won. Yeah. That's a takeout that has to be thought about. What is it that he has done, and what is it around it that he was the first person to be awarded with that laurel? I mean, he took that. It was a momentous time. Number two, Tegla Lorupe lost out, but she was the chef de mission of the refugee Olympic team.
Yes.
And at the Laureus Awards, she's a member of the Laureus Academy. At the Laureus Awards, she was the one who received that. So there are two takeouts. What is it that these two people who have worked directly within the IOC have been able to do? And for Paul Tergat, as a member of the IOC, he's basically an insider. Let's say Kenya is blessed that we've not got, that the National Olympic Committee of Kenya has not gone the way of Athletics Kenya. When Isaiah Kiplagat left the IAAF Council,
Yes.
and David Okeo came in, David Okeo was suspended from activities. So Kenya lost its position. For the National Olympic Committee, they've got to say, there it is. So first of all, the credibility when it comes to matters anti-doping, and number two, they've got to get the two takeouts and see how they can build on them. And Kariuki mentioned about funding. What is seems to, I mean, I haven't seen it being spoken about in the papers and everything, is that the Noc is suspended from receiving the solidarity funds from the IOC. Now, with this election having come into place, and from what I heard from the IOC observer Sam Ramasamy, then it looks like the doors might be opened. So it's up to them now to capitalize and find out how do you get down to the sport. And then the third thing, and it's a challenge. He's talking about the Commonwealth Games. It's the immediate challenge. But there are some things that have been spoken about to do with the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics for as long as Kenya has been independent. Things about uniforms, athletes, allowances, athletes being tossed here and there. It's like, what would I say? It's a very strict boarding school situation. It's how you manage the athletes that has got to change. And that way, when the athlete is happy, you won't even need to push them to go train, to go perform on the fields. It's that change of attitude that has got to come into play with the new Noc office.
Of course, we're dissecting matters National Olympic Committee of Elections. Of course, a day after the event happened yesterday at a Nairobi hotel, presided over by the Center for Multi-Party Democracy alongside representatives from International Olympic Committee of Kenya. The elections, rather the poll saw a five-time world cross-country champion Paul Tergat going unopposed as the president of the organization, and first vice president Shadrack Maluki beating Nashon Rendiek from hockey, Maluki from judo, and second vice president seeing Kenya Volleyball Federation President Waithaka Kioni beating Jackson Tuwei from athletics. Kenya Secretary General's position saw Francis Kinyili Paul retaining his seat, beating his strongest challenger, that's Andrew Mudibo from tennis. Then treasurer we have Eliud Anthony Kariuki, who beat veteran broadcaster Elina Shiveka. Coincidentally, I'm reliably informed Shiveka, the latter, was having her birthday yesterday, and probably for the sake of sportsmanship, Kariuki has wished her happy birthday, though belated. Right. Yeah. And of course, other positions we have from Winnie Kamau, swimming, Paul Otula, basketball, that is committee members. Then athlete representatives, Humphrey Kayange, a player who form an integral part as far as Kenyan rugby is concerned, and Helen Obiri from athletics. Then deputy treasurer Paul Rwambo from golf, secretary general assistant. We have Francis Mutuku from tennis. Now, Mr. Kariuki, of course, after your victory yesterday, messages of congratulations trickling in. And in terms of accountability, what are you bringing on board, considering that financial impropriety has been such a menace at Noc?
Well, let me first comment on the issues that he raised on issues on ADAC and the good clean sport. 2 weeks ago, I think WADA did give Kenya a clean health bill.
Bill of health,
saying that now they are not on the radar anymore. And I think that's a step forward. The guys at ADAC are working very, very hard to ensure that education is going on, and that is a positive image. The second thing about the awards that Dr. Kip and Tegla got, I think as in the office we are going to brand that, because that's a brand that you can use to market Kenya.
Definitely.
And any good marketer would want to enjoin himself with such a brand and move on so that we can build on it. You had Kip talking about a museum in the new building.
Yes.
Those are the things that we want to build on. And we can use Kip to sell the brand of Kenya. And yesterday you were there, we gave him the honorary life president. He was there, so he's still part of the team, and he's done a lot for this country. So those two issues we can bank on. I I want to comment about the kits and all that. And there's a lot of stories behind kits and managing athletes. And that's why we are there, to change the way things will work. Because if the athlete is happy with his kits and all that, things will go smoothly. I think there was a miscommunication between the expectation of the athlete in terms of allowance and kits and what was given. For example, in Rio, I remember one of the accusations when I read in the papers was that one of the accusers was saying they need, each athlete needs eight pairs of tracksuits.
Yes.
Why? Because when he went there, he found other countries who have other deals with Nike, they're getting 8. In Kenya, Nike doesn't provide 8 types of tracksuits. They give what they have, but that is in the past. And I'm challenging my team that stock taking, as an accountant, stock is one of the most important things. And we want to change that narrative. If clothes come, you involve the stakeholders. This is what you ordered, this is what we have received. So we can only give what we have received. The question comes then, if you ordered less, how can we make sure that you get the balance so that the athlete is comfortable? And not only the right clothes, the right sizes. You know, there's been an issue on the sizes.
Yes.
Isn't it? When an athlete says, look, I got, for me, extra small and all that stuff. Those are the details. Now, in respect to allowances, and this one I can chip in comfortably because that's the Sarah Serem remuneration package has given us guidelines on how much athletes should get. In fact, it's clear-cut. Continental championships, local championships, world championships, Olympics, Commonwealth, youth. It is there in black and white.
And it's standard across all
across the board. In fact,
of your name.
In fact, if you go beyond that, you're actually breaking the law. Remember, this is cuts across even our MPs and everything. You know,
for me,
so really, those are the things that we are going to make sure. Now, for in terms of accountability, is just to instill corporate governance issues. Yeah. As an accountant, I'm an ISPAC member, so I'm bound by the rules of ISPAC. I can be punished
by the rules of the profession.
By the rules of the profession. Just like you guys in journalism, you have your own rules and regulations. Just like the lawyers, they have the LSK. Accountants have ISPAC that do have standards. And when he was there yesterday, he can remember. I don't know whether he was inside when I was saying, look, these accounts the way they are cannot pass because we have issues around them. I don't know whether you were there.
Yes, I was there. And
I proposed, I moved a motion yesterday. Let's shelve the books because they have a lot of issues. We need to understand them. Let's deal away with the elections. We'll look at the books later. So once you have a transparent system, then the machine rules. But once there's no clear-cut issues on issues of money, that's where the sponsors now go crazy. The government comes on board. Other stakeholders come and wonder what you're doing. And so we will do that. And finally, the Olympic solidarity and the IOC, the condition to resume funding, I'm sure, was based on yesterday's issue. You had Sami Ramsamy saying, look, I'm now writing a letter to the president telling him we are done. So we expect the resumption of the funding to Noc. But I have dealt a little bit with Noc. That money is not enough. Absolutely. In fact, it's not. But it helps them run their office. So we'll need more. We'll need more taskers the way they came on board during Rio. Yes. We'll need the other guys who jumped on board.
You need them for the long run.
For the long run. In fact, the Twende Kazi had thought it would be a long-term thing, not just for Rio, so that you have a contract with them. But stakeholders out there, and I work for a private company, stakeholders demand accountability. There's no magic there. You give me money, I account for it, we are okay.
And talking about more corporates coming on board to fund your activities, of course, this integrity now comes into question. What do you make of the integrity of all the new elected leaders? We saw Register of Sports, Mary Wasike, saying that probably integrity will be a factor prior to the elections. What do you make of the entire situation as far as all the elected leaders are concerned?
Well, we live in a country that is very quickly sticking to the letter of the law, more than the spirit of the law. So it's very simple. There's only one way. I'll give a very good, let me use the example of a certificate of good conduct. A certificate of good conduct is only valid when you pick it from the CID headquarters. The moment you step out onto Kiambu Road, that certificate is not valid, technically, because it talks about your past. So if somebody doesn't have a criminal conviction,
it's a historical figure.
It's a historical thing.
Yes, it's a historical character.
So it's more of it is about matters of perception, and it's something that you've got to develop. For example, if you are to ask, for example, like the first deputy president, Ken Waithaka, has he been convicted of anything? Are there questions about his integrity? Are there questions about what he does here, what he has done in the past? If those things are not there, then there is no problem. If we were to talk about somebody like, let's pick somebody like from shooting, Mohammed Shoaib. I'll use him as a very good example. This is a person who deals with firearms. This is a man who's very accurate with a gun. But the question is, has he been charged with a gun crime?
That's right.
Then those are things that you'd be looking at. So when it comes to matters integrity, then it would, for the board itself as it is, then they are clean. What matters is going forward. By the time it gets to April, are we going to hear stories about, for example, that the chef de mission who was picked is not doing his duties well, the team managers being selected randomly, are there 5 officials per athlete? Well, the quota should be something like an official to 6 athletes. That's what we should be talking about, and that's where the integrity factors will come in.
Thank you, Wahome. We would also like to welcome another guest who has joined us, Paul Otula, a committee member in the new Noc. So we are going into a short commercial break. He's joining us here on set, and also let's hear his views also for the new Noc that came about. Mr. Paul Otula, welcome. Congratulations on being now the new committee member for Noc, and this is the new edition, this is the new era. What are your thoughts about the new era now?
Thank you very much for your invitation. I think first, I want to assure Kenyans on behalf of the new Noc team that for the first time in the history of sports in this country, we are going to have a team that has come from diverse professional background. And the country should expect a lot more expertise in handling of issues.
So in terms of basketball, which you are a president, of course, of Kenya Basketball Federation, what are you bringing on board to ensure that probably even basketball gets some equal and sufficient representation at Noc?
I think for the first time also basketball is having somebody being represented in Noc, and maybe the biggest thing I can bring on board is that basketball has been leading in getting scholarships for most of its players. In fact, our best basketballers are out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wahome, during yesterday's elections, of course, it saw no one from athletics clinching the seat. Jackson Tuwai, Athletics Kenya president, failing in his case to be elected second vice president, and we saw Catherine Dereba alongside another athlete also not managing to win in their respective races. Is this a huge blow to athletics?
No, it's not a huge blow to athletics. But as it is, I mean, it's up to Athletics Kenya. I can't really speak for them, but it says maybe Athletics Kenya need to, stop thriving on the success. I mean, it's the one sport that has brought in the most Olympic medals. Kenya's Olympics medals have come from boxing and athletics. So if you are just to look at the whole setup, it's up to them to decide how are we going to work with the other federations. Because yes, they will always have a team of about 40, but there'll always be a swimming team. The next big sport that people actually should be asking about is rugby. And that is the one team sport that's going to make an impact. Hockey, it has always, until 1988 was a big Olympic sport for Kenya. Everyone respected the Kenyan hockey team. They were in the top 8 in the world until around 1990. Then everything went downwards. So why is the Kenya Hockey Union? 2 of their chairman and the vice chair did not get elected to their posts. So it's up to these federations that have got a big impact in sport to find to find a way of working with these, what people say the smaller federations. For example, Noc-K is from wrestling. If you talk about wrestling proper, I think the first time people watched proper wrestling in Kenya, I think, and they were able to follow it, I think was at the All Africa Games in '87, Greco-Roman wrestling as it came to be. Yeah. And everyone found it different from what we used to watch, Big Daddy and King Kong Bundy. Whatever we used to see as wrestling entertainment, this was a different style of wrestling. So it's up to them to stop, thriving on the medal table, but rather work with every other person who's there. There are 23 federations that are eligible to vote at the National Olympic Committee of Kenya. But I think 6 of them were not able to vote. But out of the 16 that remains, Athletics Kenya is one of them, and they've got to reach out to shooting, they've got to reach out to handball, they've got to reach out to table tennis, they've got to reach out to the Kenya Rugby Union. So it's all about how you work with other federations, but at the end of it all, who's been in charge of, the presidency of the National Olympic Committee of Kenya going for the last 30 years, Charles Mukora, former AK president, Kipchoge Keino from AK. Also AK, and now Paul Tergat fronted by AK. So they can't say they've lost. They're still at the top.
One thing I love about the new office, and Mr. Polo talked about, was the diverse background. But then again, these were former sportsmen. They are not coming to leadership because they are from some administrative post to leadership. They were sportsmen, and now they are heading their federations, and now they're in the leadership of Noc. But when I interviewed Paul Tergat during the campaign period and all this, one thing he said was to bring now these federations, bring them on board, yes, but also make their games in the Olympics shine. We don't want also to see athletics shining only at the Olympics. So are we going to see basketball doing the best? Are we going to see wrestling coming on board and going that forward?
Well, yeah, and as he has put it right, it's about developing the other sports also. Yeah. Let me say, the fact that we are in Noc, basketball is there, is not to sway from the fact that we are developing the sport. The representation, the position that Mr. Otula and I are in is not to enhance our federations.
Yeah, it's true.
We are coming to look at the sports it's the whole global group. And I think that's what Noc elections are all about. In addition, being former athletes and all that, we come from diverse qualifications. Mr. Otula here has led in the school fraternity for years. I knew him in Mangu previously, now Maseno. And so he comes with that experience to try and assist Noc develop its corporate governance issues and policies. And that's the new thing that we bring on board. I come with my expertise, if I have any remaining, on my accounting profession to see the things are done properly. And then remember, Noc has commissions under them, and this is important. I think people don't look at it that way. Commissions in the corporate world will be like committees. I don't know what schools call them, but in corporate world it's committees. Noc has commissions, like the media commission. Yes. You guys are aware about the media commission, aware about the medical commission. Those are the background commissions that help in other NOCs to do the job. And we hope we'll be able to articulate those issues.
Mr. Otula, over to you now. Before the elections, there were factions, and of course, we've seen the team change lineup, of course, being represented by 2. That is Paul Tergat, the newly elected president, and Shadrach Maluki of Judo got elected first vice president. And of course, some of you were fronting themselves independently without aligning yourselves to certain factions. Maybe are you putting your differences aside during and before the campaigns for the betterment of growth of the sport now going forward after the elections yesterday?
I think one thing I want to assure Kenyans is that behind those factions, we are one big family. It's only that somebody has to occupy that office. But in fact, immediately after the elections, I think Kenyans could see that those who lost and those who won were shaking hands, because at the end of the day, we are going to serve the same sport. And those of us who have moved into Noc office, we are going to serve all other disciplines, not just the disciplines that sponsor that.
Yeah, yesterday I told a friend of mine, because he expected fireworks at the meeting. We had a bet.
Yes.
And I told him, I've been in sports for a long time. I can assure you, tomorrow's meeting will end up properly. And then what we noticed is the police and the people who are there were bored. In fact, they kept sleeping out there. They drank all the tea they wanted. They were just lying around there with expecting fireworks. But as Paula said, we shook hands. The vote of thanks was given by
somebody who lost.
Shiveka. She spoke very well. She said, we are one family. We fought a good fight. Let's meet another day. And that's how sportsmen are. I can't remember when last we even fought in any elections. I've been in sports council for a long time. And now, Noc, I've participated in elections. We always shake hands. I think the problem is within the federations themselves. That's where wrangles, when they're there, they get a little bit murky. But within the national federations, they are respectable people. And I want to say this, I give a lot of respect to the outgoing office, 100%. They have guided us through it. Despite all the negative issues, they've done what they could have done within that time. But you see, in life, it's how you finish, it's not how you started. So I think they are still struggling with this. Rio issue wasn't very nice, but they've done a tremendous work to bring us where we are. But we were one team.
Yeah. I'll put something out. You know, if you look at what we see the Olympics as the games, but you see the whole Olympic. You hear everybody talking about the Olympic movement, and they've got their values. There is excellence, there is friendship, and there is respect. And you know, I have been to. This is the third major. I mean, over this year and following, you know, the National Olympic Committee when they do the elections and everything. You know, at times it has been a boring thing where you very well know the executive start at 13-0. I mean, the votes up front. But yesterday, and yesterday, I had the immediate former Deputy Secretary General, have to put it, when they were doing the, when the Assembly was meeting before the elections, he put them out. And it is the first time I've had it mentioned straightforward at a Noc AGM that was open to the public. And, you know, you also have to consider this. It was live on television stations.
That was something different. Actually, I was shocked. I expected the keep to say, look, come on, you take your photos and step out. Yeah. But it was live.
It was live. And, at the end of it all, things came out. And if you picked out a lot from that, I have to say, some of these things, they came out. And I know there was a very heated point before the election. But the moment it cooled down, everything changed. And that was after about, 6 hours and a half or something.
That's right.
This time it was a bit shorter because people knew what they were going for. And it's the betterment of sport. On a light note, Mr. Paul Otula here for the first time. Our audience is a very young generation. They usually hear Maseno, Mangu, Paul Otula with basketball. What was your secret on winning those championships with Maseno and Mangu?
I think what people should know is that every child is talented. And I'm one person who really advocates for that. Any person going to handle that child should also be equally talented to bring out the best out of that child. I think we miss it at that point. And I would say maybe some of the students I've handled are fortunate that they had somebody like me who can combine both classwork and out of classwork. And I think all teachers should have that quality.
And you've been also actively involved in matters, secondary school games. Do you think it is formed an integral part as far as growth and development of the sport in the entire country is concerned?
Actually, secondary schools have done so much. What we see at the national level, there is a teacher behind that talent. It's unfortunate we are hardly recognized, but the great runners you are seeing around came from the hands of a teacher. There's a teacher who identified that talent, harnessed it to the level that now they are brought to be handled by Noc.
And now you are off the hook as far as the leadership of your former high school, that is Maseno, is concerned. Probably this will help you to deliver at the Noc as a committee member.
I think the wealth of experience I've had on the ground, I think is going to be a big asset to Noc, and not just to Noc, but to other federations. And I think also as Noc, we are there to serve other federations. We are not just going to be affiliated with the mother federation that we came from. We are going to assist them all. And one thing I want to add on what my friend has just mentioned, I want to commend the former leadership because actually the management structure they had was the old type. But the new team that has come in has the new mindset. And you're going to see a lot of changes. In fact, you're not just going to have doors to knock. Our doors are going to be open throughout because information is power. We are going to invite a lot of information from people so that we build on that.
Elid Kariukas probably wind up at a young age. I was passionate about wrestling and I used to watch wrestling, of course, happening in overseas countries. Maybe now that you're coming to Noc as the treasurer, are you pushing from within to, restore the lost glory of wrestling?
We will. Wrestling for a long time has been in the armed forces, the controlled institutions. Those are the big teams. And that there's always a limitation to, if I have a match at NYS, accessing NYS for an outsider. And what we've been doing for the last 5 years is to get it out. Last year, we had a youth team going to Egypt, and they brought medals. And this is not captured by media. For some reason, we are not out there. But we brought medals. During the Brazzaville Games, which I was a deputy chef division, we brought 3 medals. My wrestlers brought 3 medals. And so what we are doing now is developing the youth and bringing it out. I've always wanted to talk to the KSSA people to bring it out as a school, sport. And it is a safe sport. Wrestling suffers from what you see on TV with Akina Big Daddy and so forth. So to convince a parent that it is a safe sport, the parent's mind, and Otula is a parent, he will think about breaking each other's with the heads. That is something we need to bring it out because it's a safe sport. In the US, it's played at the college level, and it's safe. We have rules and regulations. We've now gotten it out from the institutions, the armed forces. We now have clubs all over, including Kitale. We were also, just before the former governor of Kalwale, to enjoin it with the bullfighting so that we can take our wrestlers there. In addition to the bulls fighting, we have a wrestling match because they are very good at it. It's only that they need the skills.
What a
My
combination.
best wrestlers come from that side.
Yeah.
Right now, my medalists come from that side. And all they need is to tell them the techniques of what to do. I was in one of the matches in basketball for the schools, 2 years ago, and there was a school from, Pokot or Turkana, tall boys. Yeah. And I was telling Otula that time, if these boys are shown what to do, they'll give these guys a run for their money. It's the same thing.
And that is going to happen. Finally, as we are winding up this segment, the Invictus Games are happening in Toronto. Are you following? And will they see our people there?
Well, I haven't followed much about them, but if we look at them and see the possibility of doing that, then we can do that.
Well, we want to appreciate you for coming, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Karaoke, Mr. Apollo Tura, Daniel Wahola.
Yeah, something I want to challenge them.
Yeah.
I mean, let me just say the honeymoon period lasts 24 hours, the journalists, and they know.
Are you threatening us?
No,
In case of failure to deliver.
No,
Very threatening us
the
already.
part is done, but this is where it starts.
Yeah.
For example, for a very long time, I believe Kenya, as it is at the moment, as a country that, as compared to many parts of Africa, if you compare, Anglophone Africa, Francophone Africa, Arab Africa, if you tend to see that Anglophone Africa tends to move towards the intellectual and everything. Number one, I'd like to see, the Kenya Olympic Academy in force. Because what will it teach? It will teach about sports. It will teach about what the Olympism is. It will teach about anti-doping. If any Olympic, think of rowing, if they want to get proper instruction, then they don't have to look for premises, and there are ways to work with it. Number two, and I'll keep this, and just like I said at the start, anti-doping and getting Kenya clean. Ricky has mentioned that, yes, the anti-doping agency of Kenya is out. But this week, Athletics Kenya told us they are not out of the woods yet. In fact, they've been given a new set of higher standards. How to do the blood samples, how they're going to do it, getting the athletes pool, getting the doctors network. So it's a very tough challenge still for Kenya, Olympic-wise. But sports-wise, and for Mr. Otula, Senegal, the most consistent women's team in Africa. That's all I know. We want to see our girls get back up there. And for boys, we want to see them grow. For wrestling, I'm telling you, it will be very interesting if you take it down there. But at the end of it all, the challenge is getting Kenya's reputation back. And for next year, it's a big one. This one will basically resonate well with Y254. Breakdance is now an Olympic sport.
Really? I had no idea about that.
Yes. Dance sport.
We should have admitted them yesterday. Why didn't we admit them yesterday?
Maybe they haven't showed up. They need to do it.
They need to apply.
Yeah, because in Argentina next year, the Youth Olympics,
they'll be there.
Yes, and the judging for who participates at the Olympics is going to be done on the platforms of these young people. Facebook, Instagram. Yes. That's where the judging is being done. And that's a whole great thing. So dance sport needs to wake up. They just lost an opportunity to show the young people. I mean, like what they say about Olympics is sports without culture is just a dull physical activity.
Yeah. Quality conversation you can only get on Saturday afternoon, 12 to 2 on Y254 Maxwell Wasika alongside Robert Osoro, of course, taking you through. You are dissecting about the National Olympic Committee of Kenya elections, and you are glad to host people who got elected yesterday. Anthony Eliud Kariuki, the newly elected treasurer, alongside Paul Otula, a man who forms an integral part as far as Kenyan basketball is concerned, coming in as a committee member alongside Daniel Wahome, solid journalist with KBC. It's been a pleasure having you on board. We shall be looking forward to have you next time. And, you know, bring you to book in case you don't deliver.
I want to challenge him to bring all those ideas on board, not to keep it with him. Just bring them.
But I want to tell you, dancing is already in schools.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's already,
just
that competition is already in
the
schools.
issue of the academy, bring it on board.
Yes.
Just bring that paper and tell us this is what we want to see. And that's what stakeholders is all about when you want information.
Well, you have heard it. The new National Olympic Committee is an open office. It's not a closed office. Anything you have, just walk in there and watch. Now, the next feature is of David Etale. He's a former Marine with the British forces. He was blown up in his last tour in Afghanistan. He has made 5 tours, 2 in Iraq, 3 in Afghanistan, and he formerly played for Kenya Commercial Bank and Tusker FC. He did not get a chance to compete in the current Invictus games that are happening in Toronto, Canada, but he will be in the next edition in New Zealand. Let's hear his story.